but don't use style as an excuse not to improve.
Hello everybody, my name's Kat. Welcome back. As you can tell by the title, today we're going to be talking about art styles. What's an art style? What makes up an art style? How do I make my own art style? A little bit of a disclaimer. If you are just starting out in art and you're serious about wanting to learn and improve, maybe don't focus on style. Really focus on learning the fundamentals, anatomy, perspective, hone your observational skills, color theory. I know it's kind of boring, but it's important. And most importantly, practice, lots of practice, and time. Give yourself time. But let's say, for the purposes of this video, you have a good hold on the fundamentals, or at least enough to get started, and you want to learn how to stylize your art more. Or maybe you're trying to grow on social media and you want your art to have a cohesive look to it. Or maybe you're working on a project, like a book or a comic, and you need to make sure you have a consistent art style. Here are, in my opinion, the building blocks, if you will, of how to build your own style. First off is something I like to call the sliding scale of stylization.
One way to think of a style is simply, what are your shorthands that you use when you're interpreting real life into 2D? So when you're looking at a style, you're not only thinking, how stylized is it, aka how far away from real life is it? You're also thinking about, how is it being stylized? For example, I would say these two examples are around the same level of stylization, around the same distance away from realism. But the shorthands or techniques that we're going to get into are completely different, so the styles look completely different. So let's get into some more of these building blocks. Next up, line art. I'm going to scoot over so I can put examples here, because I'm really going to love having to do that when I'm editing. As you know, there are a lot of different kinds of line art, a lot of different looks for line art. How thick are the lines? Are the lines textured or smooth? Are they sketchy? Are they really clean? When I do line art, it's usually a medium thickness of a line, always a textured brush. I hate smooth line art. And I usually color the lines in some way. But lately, as I've been working on my children's books, I've been experimenting more with a lineless style, like this, where I use shading and contrast to define the contour edge of the subject instead of lines. Next building block of style is colors. And when I say you should practice and experiment and just make art, the reason why I'm saying that is because you may find that there's a color palette or types of colors that you gravitate towards naturally. For me, without really any intentional effort on my part, I was gravitating a lot towards cool colored palettes, very moody, dramatic lighting. But there's so many different ways you can use color. You can use it in a very exaggerated pop art, bold sort of way, or maybe very muted and natural, or pastels, or monochrome, or black and white, no color. Some artists keep things very flat and simple, while others lean heavily into dynamic, glowy effects. The next building block for a style is something that you may not have considered, but I think is a very key part of a style, and that is subject matter. For example, Sibling, a very common thread in all of her art, is a female character, usually, surrounded by these sort of stars. Then Gabriel Piccolo, who is very famous for drawing superheroes in a sort of everyday or just modern day teen environment. Now, could these artists then go and draw a completely different subject matter with all the same line work, colors, techniques, everything else, and would it still look like their style? Yeah. The next building block is more of a simple one, backgrounds. For example, Jamie M. Green uses blank backgrounds mostly in her art, but what makes her style distinctive is she almost always uses a black background instead of a white one. But then there's artists like Hikala who use detailed backgrounds, and that's very distinctive of their style. Another thing to note is when you're drawing a background, are you using realistic perspective or no? Are you kind of playing fast and loose with the rules there? One artist that really plays with perspective is Anusha, who is on YouTube. I love her videos. Especially in her children's book illustrations, she keeps the perspective loose and kind of like flat and not really accurate to real life proportions, and that gives it a very charming childlike feel, which is perfect for children's books. And finally, the aspect of an art style that I think most people immediately think of is how you draw the eyes. Not just the eyes, also facial features, but a lot of what makes a style distinctive is how the artist interprets eyes. Because in real life, eyes look like this. But when you're trying to translate that into however stylized your art style is, you make shorthands, and everyone's shorthands are a little bit different. How does the artist interpret anatomy? How does the artist stylize anatomy in general? Proportions, different body parts, different facial features. But you probably could see this coming from my preface at the beginning. I've mentioned styles that omit backgrounds, that use shorthands for drawing facial features, that simplify anatomy, that don't use correct perspective. And you can do that, right? You can do that. But don't use style as an excuse not to improve. Again, disclaimer, if you're just drawing for fun and you don't really care about improving, do whatever you want. This does not apply to you. Avoiding drawing hands because you don't know how to draw hands is not going to help you improve as an artist. Avoiding drawing backgrounds or street views or anything, it's not going to help you improve. It's going to hurt you in the long run. And I know because I did it, obviously. Especially when it comes to the shorthands that people use to draw facial features, what this can lead to is same face syndrome, where you have a set way that you're like, this is how I draw eyes, this is how I draw noses, this is how I draw mouths, and there's no variety, and then all your characters look like they have the same face copy and pasted onto them. Let your style evolve with you as your skills improve or as different projects you take on demand that it change.
Because the worst thing that can end up happening is you lock yourself out from the opportunities of learning new things or trying new things about color theory, anatomy, perspective, composition, just for the sake of maintaining your style. But of course, if you're just having fun and you don't care about improving, then this doesn't apply to you, so do not sound off in my comments, please and thank you. So we've made it this far. I've gone through all of the main things that I think make up the meat of an art style. So now we're gonna get a little interactive. So number one, you're gonna pull up your own art, look at it, and ask yourself, what do I like about my art right now? What do I like about how I draw what I'm drawing and how I'm drawing it, and what do I want to keep moving forward? If it helps you, here are the building blocks, which are, it's basically just like art fundamentals, but like it's fine. Here are the building blocks I mentioned. If that helps you, pause the video if you need, I'll wait. And we're back. Love that list you made. Your art, chef's kiss. It's beautiful. So I recommend making a Pinterest board or even just a folder on your computer or your phone with art pieces that you really love. You don't have to know why exactly you love them yet. Just, yes, I love this art. I want to make art like this. I love how they drew this, or I love how this looks. Just save it. Cool? I can pause again, but I'm just gonna keep talking. If you want some art inspiration or character design references, my Pinterest is linked in the description. Have fun with that. So you know you like these artists. So now we need, oh my lord. So you have all your art references saved. Now we need to identify what are they doing that I like, that I wanna borrow and put into my own art. If you've never tried to analyze art before or analyze an art style before, we're gonna do it together. I'm gonna pull up one of my artworks and we can analyze it together. Okay, let's pick. I've kind of been playing around with my art style lately, so it's not very consistent. Let's just go with this one. Boop. Okay, so number one, stylization. For this piece, I'd say it's leaning a little more towards realism. It's not totally cartoony and unrealistic proportions, but still obviously not realistic per se. Okay, next, line art. If you zoom in, you can see I am using a textured brush. I'm also coloring some of the lines, leaving the lines on the contour black. That's a choice. I also, with the line art, put a cast shadow underneath the chin, and I also use the line art to kind of define chunks of the hair. Now let's look at color. This has a very warm color palette. I actually used an overlay layer to make it even more cohesive and orange. The green is pretty much the only contrasting color. Everything else is peach, orange, warm colors, brown. And lighting is pretty minimal. I do have some lighting on the hair just to make it look shiny. Everything else is mostly just texture, not really that much shading going on. Next, subject matter. A good example of this is one of a series I made of pretty girls as aesthetics. So the subject matter that ties all of these pieces together in a cohesive style is that they're all full body shots of girls in the same style. Backgrounds, again, if you look at all of them as a set, you can see I put very minimalistic backgrounds, a light color with some kind of shape of a dark color going through it. And any distinctive ways I stylized features for this, I mean, it's kind of hard to judge looking at your own art, because this is just how I draw faces. You let me know if you think I am doing anything distinctive here. I don't know. Sorry, it looks like a face to me, because that's my style, I guess. I hope that was helpful. So if you're looking at art you like, but you don't know why exactly you like it, going through the checklist, picking it apart, finding what exactly it is that you want to take inspiration from to add to your own art, that's how I do it. So there is my ramble on how to develop your own art style. Long story short, when you're aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it, you have control over the art you're making. In the comments, let me know, how would you describe your own art style? What kind of line work, what kind of colors, what kind of subject matter do you usually draw? You can follow my art Instagram at Ms. Katarina T, and over here there's some videos that you might like to watch after you're done this one. I make new videos every other week. Thank you so much for watching. Mwah! And I'll see you then. I love you. Goodbye.